The stars looked peaceful through the bridge windows of the defiant dawn. Captain Taemin stood with his hands behind his back, watching the endless black of space. His ship was 3 months into a survey mission, mapping old trade routes in the outer rim. It was supposed to be simple work. Safe work. Captain, we're approaching the coordinates, Sung-ho said from the navigation station. The young man was barely 25, fresh from the academy. This was his first deep space assignment. Taemin nodded. Take us in slowly. What are we looking at? It's a station, sir. Old design. Really old. Sung-ho's fingers danced across his console. I'm reading power signatures, but they're faint. Like something on standby mode. Chief Engineer Hannah looked up from her station. I can run a full scan if you want. Might tell us who built it. Do it, Taemin said. He felt uneasy, though he couldn't say why. Maybe it was instinct from too many years in space. Yuna, keep weapons ready. Just in case. The weapons officer raised an eyebrow. Expecting trouble, Captain? Always expect trouble. That's how you avoid it. The defiant dawn moved closer to the ancient way station. It was massive, easily twice the size of their ship. The hull was dark metal covered in strange symbols. Parts of it looked like they had been floating here for thousands of years. Hana whistled softly. Captain, you're going to want to see this. These readings are incredible. This station is at least 10,000 years old. Maybe older. 10,000? First Officer Junho stepped forward. He was a tall man with sharp eyes that missed nothing. That would make it Vrathari. I thought their civilization died out completely. It did, Hannah said. But their technology was supposed to be amazing. If we could bring back even a small piece of this. Taemin understood what she meant. A discovery like this could change everything. New technology, new understanding of ancient civilizations. But something felt wrong. Captain, I'm detecting movement, Yuna said suddenly. Her voice was tight. Multiple contacts. They're coming from inside the station. How many? 6. No, wait. Yuna's face went pale. 12 contacts and rising. They're powering up weapons. Taemin's stomach dropped. Red alert. All hands to battle stations. Sung-ho, get us out of here. The bridge lights turned red. Alarm screamed through the ship. But it was already too late. The ancient station came alive like a sleeping giant waking up angry. Panels slid open across its surface. 12 sleek warships emerged, black as the void around them. They moved with terrible purpose, spreading out to surround the defiant dawn. They're targeting us, Yuna shouted. Shields up. The first blast hit them like a hammer. The ship shook violently. Taemin grabbed his chair to stay standing. Sparks flew from a console on the left side of the bridge. Return fire, Taemin ordered. Yuna's fingers flew across her controls. The defiant dawn wasn't a warship, but it had weapons for protection. Energy beams lanced out toward the nearest enemy vessel. They hit, but the ancient ship's shields absorbed the damage easily. Their shields are too strong, Yuna said. Our weapons barely scratched them. Another impact. Then another. The enemy ships moved in perfect coordination, like they were controlled by one mind. The defiant dawn shuddered under the assault. Hull breach on deck 3. Someone shouted over the comm system. Engineering to bridge. Hana's voice came through, static making it hard to hear. We're losing power to the main engines. I need to shut them down before they explode. Taemin made a decision he hated. Do it, Junho. Coordinate damage control teams. Sung-ho, can you plot an emergency jump? The young navigator's face was covered in sweat. Working on it, sir. I need 30 seconds. We don't have 30 seconds. Yuna fired again, but 2 more enemy ships had joined the attack. Shields at 40%. Medical Officer Yoonji's voice came over the comm. Captain, I have wounded coming in. The hull breach killed 4 people on deck 3. 4 people dead. Taemin felt each death like a weight on his chest. But he couldn't think about that now. He had to save the rest of his crew. 20 seconds, Seung-ho said. His voice shook, but his hands stayed steady. An explosion rocked the ship. The lights flickered. Taemin smelled smoke. Fire on deck 5. Junho reported. Damage control teams responding. Shields at 20%, Yuna said. 1 more hit like that, and we're done. 10 seconds, Seung-ho whispered. The enemy ships closed in. Taemin could see them clearly now through the windows. Beautiful, deadly machines from a civilization long dead, still protecting their station. Still killing anyone who came too close. Jump ready, Seung-ho shouted. Do it, now. The defiant dawn lurched. Reality twisted around them as the emergency jump drive activated. For a moment that felt like forever, they were nowhere and everywhere at once. Then space snapped back into focus. They were safe. For now, but the bridge was a disaster. Smoke filled the air. Sparks continued to fall from damaged systems. Taemin coughed and waved the smoke away from his face. Report, he said. Hana's voice came through the comm, and she sounded exhausted. Captain, the main engines are offline. We have hull breaches on 3 decks. Life support is working, but barely. We're bleeding atmosphere from a dozen places. Casualties? Yoonji answered. 6 confirmed dead. 15 injured. I'm setting up triage now. 6 dead. Taemin closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, he saw his crew looking at him, waiting for him to tell them what to do, waiting for him to fix this. Seung-ho, where are we? The navigator checked his console. Middle of nowhere, sir. The emergency jump threw us way off course. The nearest human colony is... He paused. It's 3 weeks away at normal speed. We don't have normal speed, Hana said. We have maybe 1/4 speed. If that, Junho stepped closer to Taemin. What are our options? Taemin looked at the star map. They were alone out here. No help was coming. They had to save themselves. Seung-ho scanned for any ports or stations. Anything closer than home. The young man worked quietly for a moment. Then he pointed at the display. There, Outpost Meridian. It's a trading station, multi-species, 12 days away at our current maximum speed. 12 days, Taemin repeated. Hana, how long can we survive? There was a long pause. With severe rationing? Maybe 8 days. That's if nothing else breaks. The bridge went silent. Everyone understood what that meant. They were 4 days short. They would run out of air, food, and water before they reached safety. Taemin looked at his crew. He saw fear in their eyes. But he also saw determination. They were human. They didn't give up. Set course for Outpost Meridian, he said firmly. Full speed. But Captain, Junho said quietly, we can't make it. Taemin met his first officer's eyes. We'll find a way. We always do. That's what humans do. Outside the windows, the stars waited. 12 days of impossible journey stretched ahead of them. But they would try. They had no choice. The defiant dawn turned toward the distant outpost and began to limp forward into the dark. The first 3 days were the hardest. Tae-min stood in engineering, watching Hana work. She had been awake for almost 40 hours straight, tearing apart systems to keep them alive. Her uniform was stained with grease, and her hands were covered in small cuts. Tell me something good, Taemin said. Hana laughed, but it was a tired sound. We're still breathing. That's about as good as it gets. She pulled a component from the wall and examined it. But if you want the truth, Captain, we're in bad shape. Really bad. How bad? The hull breaches are sealed, but we're still losing air. Slow, but steady. The life support system is running at 60% capacity. Food isn't the problem. Water isn't the problem. It's oxygen. She met his eyes. We have maybe 6 days of breathable air left. 7, if we're lucky. Taemin had known it would be bad. But hearing the numbers made it real. Can we fix it? Not with what we have. The parts we need don't exist on this ship. Hana wiped her forehead with the back of her hand. But I have an idea. It's crazy, but it might work. I'm listening. We shut down entire sections of the ship. Medical bay, recreation areas, half the crew quarters. We move everyone into the cargo holds and main corridors. Less space means we need less air to keep it breathable. Taemin thought about it. That could work. What else? We cannibalize the non-essential systems. Use their components to patch the life support. It's not standard procedure. Actually, it breaks about 15 safety regulations. But we don't need standard right now. We need to survive. Do it, Taemin said. Whatever you need. By day 4, the ship looked different. Whole sections were dark and cold, their power redirected to keep the remaining areas alive. The crew lived in cramped quarters, sleeping in shifts on makeshift beds. But they were still breathing. Eunji had set up her medical station in cargo hold 2. Taemin found her there, treating a crew member who had burned her hands during a repair job. How are they holding up? He asked. Eunji finished bandaging the woman's hands before answering. Physically, they're tired, hungry, and scared. But they're tough. They'll make it. She paused. Mentally is harder to measure. Some are doing fine. Others are starting to crack. Anyone I should be worried about? Not yet. But Captain, if this goes on much longer... She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. That night, the coolant leak happened. Taemin was trying to sleep when the alarms woke him. He ran to engineering, still pulling on his jacket. Hana was already there, shouting orders to her team. What's happening? Taemin asked. Coolant line ruptured in Section 7, Hana said. The reactor is overheating. If we don't fix it in the next 20 minutes, it's going to melt down. Can you reach it? Section 7 is exposed to vacuum. The hull breach from the battle goes right through it. Hana pulled on a spacesuit. We have to go out there and fix it by hand. That's suicide. It's suicide if we don't. Hana sealed her helmet. Besides, I've done stupider things. Taemin wanted to order her not to go. But he knew she was right. They had no choice. Take Yuna with you. And be careful. Careful is for people who have time, Hana said. Then she was gone. Tae-Min stood in the engineering bay, watching the reactor temperature climb. He listened to Hana and Yuna's voices over the comm as they made their way through the damaged section. 20 minutes. That's all they had. We're at the coolant line, Hana said. Her breathing was loud in the comm. It's worse than I thought. The whole assembly is cracked. Can you patch it? Taemin asked. Maybe, if the universe decides to be nice to us today. There was silence except for the sound of tools on metal. Yuna, hand me the sealant. 15 minutes left. Taemin watched the numbers. The reactor temperature was climbing into the red zone. If it got too high, the automatic systems would shut it down. And if that happened, they would lose all power. Life support would fail. They would all die. Almost got it, Hana said. Just need to... wait. No. What's wrong? Taemin felt his heart race. The sealant isn't holding. The pressure is too high. It keeps cracking. 10 minutes. Hana, you need to get out of there, Taemin said. If that reactor goes, it'll take you with it. If it goes, it takes all of us. Hana shot back. I'm not leaving. Yuna's voice came through. What if we reduce the pressure first? Vent some of the coolant before we seal it? That could work, Hana said. But we'd need to time it perfectly. Vent too much and the reactor still overheats. Too little and the seal won't hold. Then we time it perfectly, Yuna said calmly. 5 minutes. Tae-min stood helplessly, listening to his crew work. He heard them counting down, coordinating their efforts. The reactor temperature hit critical levels. Now. Hana shouted. There was a hissing sound over the comm. Then silence. Tae-min held his breath. Did it work? He asked. Wait for it. Hana said. The reactor temperature stopped climbing. Then, slowly, it began to drop. Down, back into safe levels. It worked, Yuna said. She sounded surprised. Tae-min let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Get back inside. Both of you. But as Hana and Yuna made their way back, disaster struck again. A piece of debris, probably knocked loose during their repair work, hit Yuna's suit. The impact tore a hole in her leg. I'm losing air. Yuna shouted. How bad? Hana asked. Bad. My suit says I have maybe 3 minutes of reserve air. The airlock is 5 minutes away, Hana said. Tae-min could hear the fear in her voice now. Tae-min made a decision. Hana, share your air with her. Link your suits. Captain, if I do that, we both might not make it. That's an order. There was a pause. Then Hana said, Yes, sir. Tae-min listened to them move through the damaged section, sharing air between their suits, racing against time. He wanted to do something, anything. But he could only wait. We're at the airlock, Hana said. She was breathing hard now. Get inside. Fast. The airlock cycled. It felt like it took forever. Then Hana and Yuna stumbled through the door, pulling off their helmets. They were both gasping for air, but they were alive. Tae-min helped them to the medical bay. Yoonji took one look at Yuna's leg and went to work. That night, Tae-min called Junho to his quarters. We lost 2 people today, Tae-min said quietly. The debris hit 2 crew members in Section 4. We couldn't reach them in time. Junho nodded slowly. The crew's starting to lose hope, Tae-min. They don't think we're going to make it. Do you think we'll make it? Junho was quiet for a long moment. I think we have a chance. A small one. But Captain, we need to be realistic. We're not going to have enough air. Then we find more air, Tae-min said. We find a way. There is no way. The math doesn't work. Tae-min stood up. The math never works for humans, Junho. We survive things that should kill us. We find solutions that shouldn't exist. That's what we do. And if we don't, then we die trying. But we don't give up. Not while we're still breathing. Junho left, and Tae-min was alone with his thoughts. 6 days of air left. 8 days until they reached the outpost. The numbers were clear. They were going to fall short, but Tae-min had not lied to Junho. Humans survived impossible things. They would find a way. They had to. Outside his window, the stars shone cold and distant. The defiant dawn limped forward through the dark, carrying its desperate crew toward a hope that seemed further away with each passing hour. Day 7 started with bad news. Soon Dash-ho found Tae-min on the bridge, staring at the navigation display. The young man's face was pale. Captain, we have a problem. The ship is drifting off course. Tae-min felt his stomach tighten. How is that possible? The damaged navigation systems. They're not holding our trajectory steady. We're drifting slowly to the left. Seung-ho pulled up calculations on his screen. If we don't correct course, we'll miss outpost meridian completely. Can you fix it? The automated systems are too damaged. I'll have to calculate our course manually. using star positions, and he trailed off, looking at the massive amount of work ahead of him. How long will it take? Seung-ho swallowed hard. 36 hours. Maybe more. And I can't make mistakes. One error, we could end up going the wrong direction. Taemin put a hand on the young man's shoulder. You can do this. I know you can. Seung-ho nodded, but Taemin could see the fear in his eyes. The weight of all their lives was now on this young navigator's shoulders. For the next day and a half, Seung-ho barely moved from his station. He worked with ancient navigation tools, measuring star positions by hand, making calculations that computers usually did in seconds. His eyes were red from exhaustion. His hands shook from too much caffeine, and not enough sleep. Eun-G came to check on him twice, worried he would collapse. But Seung-ho refused to rest. If I stop, we die, he said simply. So I won't stop. While Seung-ho worked, the rest of the ship faced another crisis. The oxygen levels had dropped to 18%. Normal air on Earth was 21%. At 18%, people could function, but they felt tired, dizzy, and slow. Tae-men walked through the corridors and saw his crew moving like ghosts. They spoke in short sentences, saving their breath. Some sat against the walls, too tired to stand. But they were still working. Still fighting. In cargo hold 2, Eun-G was treating crew members for oxygen deprivation symptoms. Headaches, confusion, nausea. She worked steadily, trying to keep everyone stable. How bad is it? Taemin asked her quietly. It's going to get worse before it gets better. If it gets better. Eun-G looked at him with tired eyes. Captain, we need to talk about the distress beacon. What about it? It's using power. Not much, but some. And that power is coming from the same system that runs life support. She paused. If we shut down the beacon, we could extend our oxygen by a few hours. Taemin understood what she was really saying. But if we shut it down, nobody will know we're coming. We'll go dark. Yes. What if we don't make it to the outpost? What if something else goes wrong? Nobody will find us? Captain, if we keep the beacon on, we definitely won't make it. The math is clear. That evening, Taemin called a meeting with his senior officers. Junho, Eun-G, Yuna, and Seung-ho gathered in the cramped captain's quarters. They all looked exhausted. We need to decide about the distress beacon, Taemin said. He explained the situation. If we shut it down, we gain a few more hours of oxygen. But we go silent. Nobody will know where we are. Junho spoke first. We should keep the beacon on. It's our best chance at rescue. Another ship might find us. In this sector? Hannah shook her head. We're in the middle of nowhere. The odds of another ship finding us are almost zero. Almost zero is better than zero, Junho argued. And if we shut down the beacon, we're betting everything on making it to that outpost. What if we don't? What if something else breaks? Then we fix it, Yuna said. We've been fixing things for a week. We'll keep fixing things. Eun-G leaned forward. The question is simple. Do we wait for someone to save us, or do we save ourselves? The room went quiet. That was the real question. Taemin realized. It was about more than just oxygen and power. It was about who they were as humans. Captain, what do you think? Seung-ho asked. Tae-men looked at each of them. I think humans don't wait to be saved. We've been in space for 300 years, and we've survived everything. We survived because we took our fate into our own hands. Because we refused to give up, so we shut down the beacon? Junho asked. I'm not ordering it, Taemin said. This decision is too important. We vote. Majority decides. They went around the room. Hannah voted to shut it down. Yuna voted to shut it down. Eun-G voted to shut it down. Seung-ho hesitated, then voted to shut it down. June-Ho was the last one. He sat quietly for a long moment. Finally, he nodded. Shut it down. But Captain, if this goes wrong? If it goes wrong, we all go down together, Taemin said. But at least we'll go down fighting. The next morning, Hana shut down the distress beacon. The defiant dawn went dark and silent. Just one more piece of metal drifting through space. Nobody in the galaxy knew where they were or if they were even alive. But inside the ship, the crew felt something change. They had committed themselves completely. There was no rescue coming. There was only the outpost ahead and their own determination to reach it. That afternoon, Seung-ho finally finished his calculations. He had been awake for 36 hours straight. His eyes could barely focus. Course correction complete, he said, his voice hoarse. We're back on track. Then he collapsed. Yoonji caught him before he hit the floor and carried him to medical. He slept for 14 hours straight. While Seung-ho slept, Yuna discovered something troubling. She was running diagnostics on the hull when she found it. Captain, you need to see this, she said over the com. Tae-Min found her in one of the damaged sections, holding a scanner. Her face was grim. What is it? Those Rathery weapons that hit us. They left something behind, radiation, a kind I've never seen before. She showed him the scanner readings. It's low level, but it's everywhere. In the walls, the floors, the air systems. And it's slowly spreading. Is it dangerous? Not immediately. But over time? Yes, it's poisoning the ship. Poisoning us. Yuna looked at him. Some of the crew are already showing symptoms. Nausea, fatigue, hair loss. Yoonji thought it was just from the stress and low oxygen. But it's radiation sickness. Taemin closed his eyes. Another problem. Another thing trying to kill them. Can we stop it? Clean it somehow. Not without equipment we don't have. We can slow it down maybe. Seal off the worst sections. But Captain, this changes the timeline. Even if we make it to the outpost, some of the crew might be too sick to recover. That night, Taemin stood alone on the bridge. The stars looked the same as they always had. Beautiful and cold, caring nothing for the tiny humans struggling to survive. He thought about the Vrathery, the ancient civilization that had built that station. They had been powerful once, with technology far beyond what humans had now. But they were gone, extinct, leaving behind only automated weapons and death. Hana's research had found something interesting in the station's data before they jumped away. The Vrathery had fallen because they became too dependent on their machines. They forgot how to adapt, how to struggle, how to survive without their technology. Humans were different. Humans survived by being stubborn, by refusing to accept defeat, by fighting even when logic said they should surrender. The defiant dawn was dying around them. Systems were failing. The air was running out. Radiation was poisoning them. By all reasonable calculations, they should give up. But they wouldn't. Because they were human. And humans didn't know how to quit. 5 days until they reached the outpost. 4 days of oxygen left. The math was still against them. But Taemin smiled grimly. They would find a way. They always did. Day 10 arrived with a strange discovery. Yuna was monitoring their long-range sensors when she picked up something unusual. Communications, not directed at them, but passing nearby. She listened for a moment, then called Taemin to the bridge. Captain, someone is talking about us. Taemin frowned. What do you mean? Yuna played the recording. It was in Korthan, one of the major alien languages. The ship's computer translated it. The human vessel is still moving. 3 more days at their current speed. Another voice answered. Impossible. They should be dead by now. Our calculation showed they would run out of oxygen 2 days ago. Humans are stubborn. I told you, they would last longer than expected. How much are you betting they make it? Nothing. They won't make it. Nobody could. Taman felt anger rise in his chest. They were being watched. Aliens across this sector knew about their struggle and were treating it like entertainment. Some were even betting on whether they would survive. There's more, Una said. She played another recording. This one was from a Corthan merchant ship that had passed near their position days ago. We detected their distress signal. They are requesting assistance. Should we help them? There was a long pause. Then the captain's voice, cold and amused. No, let's see if it's true what they say about humans. That they can survive anything. If they make it to Outpost Meridian on their own, they will have earned their reputation. If they don't, the captain laughed. Then we'll know humans are no different from anyone else. Taman turned off the recording. His hands were shaking with rage. They could have saved us, Una said quietly. That Corthan ship. They were close enough. They just chose not to. Call the crew to the mess hall, Taman said. Everyone who can walk. They need to hear this. 20 minutes later, the crew gathered in the cramped mess hall. There were 41 of them left. 41 out of the original 47. They looked terrible. Thin, tired, sick from radiation and low oxygen. But they came when called. Tay-Min played the recordings for them. He watched their faces as they listened. Watched anger replace despair. Watched determination replace fear. When the recordings ended, the room was silent. Then Hannah spoke. They think we can't make it. Yes, Taman said. They're watching us die for their entertainment. Yes, Hannah stood up. Then let's show them what humans can do. Let's show them they made a mistake. The crew erupted in agreement. Taman saw something change in their eyes. They had been fighting to survive. Now they were fighting to prove something. To show the galaxy that humans didn't quit, but good intentions didn't change the math. By day 11, the oxygen level had dropped to 8%. Crew members were collapsing from hypoxia. Yoonji worked constantly, trying to keep people conscious and breathing. Taemin struggled to think clearly. His brain felt foggy from the low oxygen. Every movement took effort. Then the meteor shower appeared. Seung-ho spotted it first. Captain, we have a problem. There's a debris field ahead. Thousands of rocks, some as big as our ship. Can we go around it? Taemin asked, his words slow. Not without using more power than we have. And if we change course now, we'll miss the outpost. Seung-ho's voice was tight with fear. We have to go through it. Our shields are barely working, Yuna said. One good hit, and we're dead. Taemin tried to think. The low oxygen made it hard. He felt like he was thinking through mud. Hannah stumbled onto the bridge. She looked half dead, but her eyes were sharp. I have an idea. It's crazy. Really crazy. Tell me. We use our atmosphere to maneuver. We vent air from different sections to create thrust. Push the ship left, right, up, down. We can dodge the meteors. Junho, who had been standing silently, spoke up. That will use up our air even faster. We'll suffocate. We'll suffocate anyway if a meteor hits us, Hana shot back. At least this way we have a chance. Taemin looked at his crew. They were dying already, slowly running out of air. This was just choosing how they would die. Fast from a meteor impact or slightly slower from suffocation. Unless the crazy plan worked. Do it, he said. Hannah set up the system in 15 minutes. She rigged the hull breach seals to open and close on command. When they needed to dodge left, they would vent air from the right side. The escaping air would push them in the opposite direction. It's not precise, Hana warned. And we'll be using up air fast. But it's all we have. The meteor field loomed ahead. thousands of rocks spinning through space. The defiant dawn entered the field. "Meteor at 10 o'clock. Sung-ho called out. "Then right side, Section 3. Hana said. The ship lurched to the left. The meteor passed by, missing them by meters. "Another one. Dead ahead. Vent bottom sections." The ship dropped. The meteor shot over them. For 30 minutes, they danced through the field, venting precious air, using it as fuel to dodge death. The crew worked together, calling out threats, coordinating their movements. Every breath they took was being shot out into space to save them. Then disaster struck. A meteor came from an angle they didn't see. It clipped the ship's rear section. The impact threw everyone to the floor. Alarm screamed. Taemin pulled himself up, tasting blood in his mouth. "Damage report. Hull breach in Section 9, someone called. "It's a big one. Seal it." Taemin ordered. "We can't. The seal system is damaged." They were losing air fast now. Taemin could feel it getting harder to breathe. The oxygen level was dropping. 6%. 5%. "Hannah, we need options." Hannah was working frantically at her console. "I can seal it manually, but I need to get to Section 9. And that section is already in vacuum. Then seal off the whole section. Shut the bulkhead doors. If I do that, we lose the last of our reserve air tanks. They're stored in Section 9. Hana looked at him. "Captain, if we lose those tanks, we're down to 3% oxygen. Maybe less. 3%. At that level, people would be unconscious in minutes. Dead in less than an hour. Tae-min looked at the navigation display. They were through the meteor field. An outpost meridian was... He squinted, trying to focus. "How far?" "Sung-ho, time to outpost?" The young navigator checked his console. 18 hours, Captain. 18 hours. They needed to survive 18 more hours on 3% oxygen. It was impossible. Taemin looked at his crew. They were waiting for him to make the call, waiting for him to tell them what to do. He thought about those aliens watching them, betting against them, believing humans were no different from anyone else. He thought about the Korthan captain who had left them to die. And he thought about every human who had ever faced impossible odds and survived anyway. "Seal the section," he said firmly. "We'll make it on what we have left." "Captain, we can't survive 18 hours on 3% oxygen," Junho said. "It's not possible." Taemin met his first officer's eyes. "Then we'll do the impossible. Put all non-essential crew into medical comas. Slow their breathing. Reduce their oxygen needs." "Yoonji, can you do that?" The medical officer nodded slowly. "Yes, but Captain, who counts as non-essential?" "Everyone except bridge crew and engineers." "That's 25 people. Put them under. That should give us enough oxygen for the rest of us to make it." The next hours were a nightmare. Yoonji and her team worked through the ship, putting people into medical comas. 25 crew members laid out in cargo hold 2, breathing slowly, sleeping through the final stretch. The 16 who remained awake moved through the ship like ghosts. Every step was an effort. Every breath felt thin and weak. Tae-min sat in his captain's chair, forcing himself to stay conscious. His vision blurred. His head pounded. But he wouldn't sleep. Not while his ship still flew. 12 hours to go. The oxygen level hit 2%. And still, they flew on, limping towards safety, refusing to die. Taemin wasn't sure when he stopped being able to see clearly. Maybe it was hour 14. Maybe 15. Everything was blurry now, like looking through water. He could hear Sung-ho's voice from the navigation station, counting down the distance. 4 hours to outpost meridian. 3.5 hours. 3 hours. The oxygen level was at 1.5%, lower than anyone should be able to survive. But they were still conscious. Barely. Hannah had collapsed at her station 2 hours ago. She was still breathing, but she couldn't move. Yuna was unconscious in her chair. Junho sat against the wall, eyes closed, chest rising and falling slowly. Only Taemin and Seungho remained awake. And Taemin wasn't sure how much longer he could last. 2 hours, Seungho whispered. His voice was so quiet, Taemin almost didn't hear it. Tae-min tried to respond, but no words came out. His lungs felt like they were full of sand. Every breath hurt. He closed his eyes. Just for a moment, he told himself. Just to rest. Captain, don't sleep. Taemin opened his eyes. Seungho was shaking him. The young navigator looked terrible. His lips were blue. His hands were shaking. Stay awake, Seungho said. Please, we're almost there. Taemin nodded. He focused on breathing. In and out. In and out. Keep breathing. Don't stop. 1 hour, Seungho said. The bridge lights flickered. Then went out. Emergency power only now. Red lights cast everything in a blood-colored glow. I can see it, Seungho said suddenly. Captain, I can see the outpost on sensors. Taemin forced himself to look at the display. There it was. A small dot on the screen. Growing larger. They had made it. Almost. But then Seungho's voice turned panicked. Captain, we have a problem. A big problem? What? Taemin managed to say. We're going too fast. The engines won't slow us down. They're too damaged. Seungho worked at his console with trembling hands. If we don't slow down, we're going to crash into the outpost. Use thrusters, Taemin said. I tried. They're not responding. We can steer, but we can't brake. Taemin's mind worked slowly through the problem. They were traveling too fast. They couldn't slow down. That meant crash. On purpose, he said. Aim for emergency docking bay. Captain, that could kill us. We're dying anyway. At least this way. We die trying. Seungho was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. Yes, sir. The young navigator opened a communication channel. His voice was weak but steady. Outpost Meridian, this is the U, East Defiant Dawn. We are inbound and unable to slow down. We need to make an emergency crash landing. Clear your docking bay. There was static. Then a voice came through, speaking in Korthan. The computer translated. Unidentified vessel, you are not cleared for approach. Please reduce speed and wait for docking instructions. Seungho laughed. It was a strange sound, half mad from oxygen deprivation. This is Captain Taemin of the UE's Defiant Dawn. We've traveled 12 days through hell. We're coming in whether you're ready or not. More static. Then a different voice, urgent. All ships, clear emergency docking bay 7. Human vessel inbound. This is not a drill. Taemin felt the ship begin to shake. They were entering the outpost's gravity field. The Defiant Dawn groaned, metal screaming in protest. Hold together, Taemin whispered to his ship. Just a little longer. Through the bridge windows, he could see the outpost growing larger. It was massive, a floating city in space. Hundreds of ships docked at its ports. Thousands of people lived there, and they were about to crash into it. 30 seconds. Seungho called out. Everyone hold on. Taemin gripped his chair. Around him, unconscious crew members were strapped into their seats. He hoped they would survive the impact. 20 seconds. The outpost filled their view. Taemin could see the emergency docking bay, a massive opening in the station side. It looked too small. They were going too fast. 10 seconds. Seung-ho's hands flew across the controls, making tiny adjustments, guiding them in. 5, 4, 3. The Defiant Dawn shot through the opening. 2, 1. They hit. The impact threw Taemin forward against his straps. Metal shrieked. Something exploded. The ship tumbled, rolling, crashing through the docking bay. Then everything went still. Tae-min hung in his chair, barely conscious. He heard alarms, shouting, the hiss of atmosphere rushing into the ship. Air. Fresh air. He took a breath. Then another. It hurt, but it was the most beautiful pain he had ever felt. Emergency crews in environment suits rushed onto the bridge. They cut Taemin free from his chair and lifted him onto a stretcher. We made it, he said to no one in particular. Then everything went black. Tae-min woke up in a medical bay. White lights. Clean air. The smell of antiseptic. He tried to sit up, but a hand pushed him gently back down. Easy, Captain. You're safe now. It was Yoonji. She looked tired but alive. Very alive. The crew? Taemin asked. 43 survivors out of 47. We lost 4 during the journey. Yoonji's voice was sad but proud. You did it, Captain. You got us here. The ship? Completely destroyed. The Defiant Dawn is scrap metal now. But we're alive. Over the next days, Taemin learned what had happened. The crash landing had been controlled chaos. The ship had torn itself apart, but the crew inside had survived. Outpost Meridian's medical teams had worked for hours to save them all. News of their journey had spread across the sector. The human ship that refused to die. The crew that survived impossible odds. 1 week after their arrival, Taemin was well enough to walk. He found his crew gathered in a bar on the outpost. They looked better. Clean, fed, healthy. But changed. They all wore the same expression now. The look of people who had faced death, and one. Hannah saw him first. Captain, come join us. Taemin sat down with them. They raised glasses of something that tasted terrible, but felt wonderful going down. To the Defiant Dawn, Junho said. The ship that wouldn't quit. To the crew that wouldn't quit, Yuna added. They drank. They laughed. They cried. They were alive. Later that night, Taemin stood alone on one of the outpost's observation decks. He was looking at the wreckage of his ship. It sat in the docking bay, twisted and broken. A monument to their survival. Someone came to stand next to him. Taemin turned and saw Korthan. Older, wearing a captain's uniform. You're the one who left us to die, Taemin said quietly. I recognize your ship. I heard your message. The Korthan captain nodded slowly. Yes, I thought you would surrender. When your situation became hopeless, I thought you would accept death like any logical species would. We're not logical. We're human. I see that now. The Korthan looked at the wreckage. I have seen many species face danger. Most give up when the odds are against them. They calculate their chances and surrender when death seems certain. And humans? Humans don't calculate odds. You simply refuse to accept death. The Korthan turned to face him. I was wrong about your species. I won't make that mistake again. The alien walked away, leaving Taemin alone with his thoughts. 1 month later, Taemin received new orders. A new ship. The U's unbreakable. They wanted him to choose his crew. He looked at the list of available personnel. Thousands of names. Good people, skilled people. But he knew who he wanted. He called his old crew together. Hana, Junho, Yoonji, Seung-ho, Yuna, and all the others who had survived the Defiant Dawn. I have a new ship, he told them. I need a crew. People who know how to survive the impossible. People who know how to limp towards safe harbor and still make it home. Hana grinned. Are you asking or ordering, Captain? I'm asking, They all agreed. Every single one. As they prepared for their new assignment, word came from across the sector. 3 other human ships had faced impossible situations. All 3 had used the same methods the Defiant Dawn had pioneered. Rationing everything. Cannibalizing systems. Refusing to give up. All 3 ships made it to safety. They were calling it the Defiant Dawn Protocol. When all hope is lost, humans simply refuse to acknowledge it. Tay-Min stood on the bridge of his new ship, his crew around him. They were different now. Harder. Stronger. They had been tested in ways few people ever were. And they had survived. "Ready for departure, Captain," Sung-Ho said from the navigation station. Tay-Min looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there were dangers they couldn't imagine. Challenges that would seem impossible. But they were human. And humans didn't quit. "Take us out," Tay-Min ordered. The U's Unbreakable lifted away from Outpost Meridian and jumped into the unknown, carrying a crew that had learned the most important lesson in the galaxy. Sometimes survival isn't about having enough air, or enough fuel, or enough time. Sometimes survival is simply about refusing to die.